A question many people are asking themselves in the wake of Trump's disastrous performance at the presidential debate contrasted with the fantastic performance by Vice President Kamala Harris is, what is Fox News saying? We saw Trump go on Fox News with Hannity and cope hard. But what about the other hosts? Is it sort of universally just, yeah, Trump? No, it's not. And interestingly, a lot of them, at least on this, turned against Trump and admitted this was Kamala Harris's night. Here's a compilation put together by Republican voters against Trump, and we'll talk about some more post-debate revelations.
Vice President Harris was clearly well prepared, practiced on the offensive much of the night. Former President Trump did take a lot of the bait that she threw out.
Make no mistake about it, Trump had a bad night. He rose to the bait repeatedly when she baited him, something I'm sure his advisors had begged him not to do. And we heard so many of the old grievances that we'd long thought that Trump had learned were not winners politically. And there they all were, talking about how he didn't lose the election and all that. I mean, so my sense is that she came out of this in pretty good shape. But for tonight, at least, this was pretty much her night.
You're saying she had a good night?
I'm saying she certainly did.
This what has to be thought of by supporters of Donald Trump and people in that campaign as a disappointment. I got reaction from Republican friends. The two common things were train wreck and he needs this to end. She conveyed the calm. She conveyed a preparation. She was tenacious on Russia. She had clarity about the future of the country. He was a little too gloomy, I thought. And when asked, I saw around the table, I've never heard Donald Trump not be definitive about a set of plans. He said, I have concepts of a plan. Here we are, 56 days from an election. You've been president before. He's got to recover from this.
This was rough. This was pretty intense at times. She started off shaky. She regained her footing. You watch this thing, if you're a Democrat, you're like, oh, she did a great job. You're Republican, you look at this and you're like, that's Donald Trump. He had some moments where you were like, oh my God, where are we going with this?
But he missed more opportunities. And he took all the bait and none of the opportunities. She pivoted better.
Did Donald Trump miss a few opportunities? Absolutely.
Tonight, she won.
Ooh. And that's where Trump's watching, when even Fox News is saying it, that's not a good sign for Trump. And again, it is the night after when we're recording this segment, the night of, I should say. And this is all just sort of quick, instant reaction. And I get that it's coming off a little cheerleady, but I have to give you my honest take. And when I'm overwhelmed by excitement, by how well it went, I'm going to express that to you. So that's what you're perceiving, even as unobjective as it seems. I think showing examples of even Fox News hosts having to admit that bolsters what I'm talking about. Of course, I come to you and tell you my stance on things, and my stance on this was I hope she does well because I want her to win over Trump. But even aside from my own personal opinion, I think detaching oneself and taking a third party perspective still leads you to the conclusion of, as you heard there from conservatives, this was Harris's night. And I agree with that assessment. Here's a Fox News contributor talking about why it is that Harris, right after, said, can we do another one of these?
Good evening, Trace. The Harris campaign is asking for a second debate. So we asked why, if they feel so good about how she did tonight, what is the need to put her up a second time? Their answer was basically she did so well and Trump did so poorly that they want to do that all over again. That is their view.
Yeah, I'd like to see it all over again as well. Now, you can totally expect, we talked about this in a different segment, Trump was attacking the network and the moderators. The second the night started going poorly for Trump, I think anyone who has some political knowledge could have predicted. Just count down the seconds to MAGA saying this is all the fault of ABC.
Before I walked over and tapping him on the back. He's my senator.
They were impressed. The reporters were impressed.
The biggest, I think, failure for the country tonight was ABC.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to journalism. I mean, it's on issue. I mean, there was times where they would say, Donald Trump, why did you do or say this horrible thing? And then the question to Kamala Harris is, what do you think about the horrible thing that Donald Trump did? There was no...
Yeah. And then they would ask questions to Harris that were more critical of her and then say, Trump, what do you say on that topic? But also, and this is something you can never really get MAGA to agree on. And this is going to sound so Libby, but it's true. If there's more horrible things to ask about, they should ask about them. It's like what we talked about with the flawed New York Times coverage of Trump's threats against election workers. Just because there's more bad things happening on the Trump side doesn't mean you have to overly inflate negative things about Harris to prove how balanced you are. Just cover them based on how much coverage they deserve given their importance and magnitude. And so, yeah, Trump has just done more outrageous things. So in a debate like this, that should be asked about. An example is, Trump, what do you think of the termination of the Constitution? The post of yours where you called for that. They can't turn around and say, and Harris, what about when you called for the termination? Because she hasn't. So yeah, she gets to then respond to the crazy thing he did. Or Trump, you're the one candidate on this stage who says you won't necessarily accept elections unless you win them. Harris doesn't do that. So you can't create, and this is what they want, a false equivalency where it doesn't exist. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe button. Here's a little CNN focus group.
Who do you think won, by show of hands, former President Trump? I'll give it 4, but tentative. 2 over there. What about Vice President Harris? More hands. For those of you who thought this debate could be determinative, how many of you have made up your minds based on what you saw tonight on stage in Philadelphia? Raise your hands. All right, I want to ask you why. Who do you think won, by show of hands?
So there are more people being in the Harris won camp. A CNN Snap poll, and this would be one with a methodology that is more credible than Trump's the most handsome person.com poll. But Kamala Harris has 63% of people thinking she won the debate versus Trump's 37%. And 37% is just your diehard Trumpers. So even a lot of people who might vote for Trump, seemingly based on that poll, are able to acknowledge that he didn't win. That whole question is a little bit dumb. I know that's how we frame debates, who won, who lost. It feels a little overly simplistic, but in this case, there's a pretty simple answer to it if we're using that paradigm. Here's Chris Wallace on CNN just trashing in the best of ways Trump.
I think tonight was just as devastating. I think that Kamala Harris pitched a shutout. On almost every subject I can think of. She shut Trump down on abortion. She shut Trump down on January 6th and democracy. She shut him down on national security and turned to the former president and said, the military leaders who served with you think that you're a disgrace. And then, as Dana mentioned, very powerfully at the end made the point that she is the candidate of change. And we need to turn the page from a decade of division and polarization. On substance, I think she pitched a shutout, and I think she did on style as well. I mean, the image of the debate to me is she's there happy, smiling, expressive, shaking her head and dismay at things Trump was saying. And Trump looked angry, scowling. She was looking directly at the audience. He was looking at the moderators and arguing with them and something else.
And it was so weird that he was just staring forward. She would turn and look at him and he would just stare forward as if not acknowledging her. And then he would point at her but not look at her. Are you scared, Trump? Are you scared to look at her? Frank Luntz, who is a conservative pollster, said, my phone and my X mentions are being flooded by Trump supporters complaining about the debate. I think they know he's losing. Yeah. And one thing I did want to talk about, I'll just put this up muted, actually. But Harris walked into the debate. This is a good start. And for a moment, sort of tried to meet Trump in the middle for a handshake. You can see here, she's sort of thinking, all right, I'm going to stop here. Oh, you're not going to come to me? All right, fine. You're going to shake, my damn hand. All right, I'm gonna introduce myself to you, because what this campaign's about, according to her, and I think this is an accurate assessment, is often framing sort of the crazy weirdness, wild policies of MAGA with just more rational, more people. Let's just be people, unite around common sense stuff. And so I like that there's this human element to, we're meeting for the first time. We've never been in a room together. I'm not going to do a weird thing where like we're in a boxing match or something. We're going to go line up there. That's the bad analogy. I don't know why I said that. But as if it's just a weird game show vibe where you walk up to the podium and you just sort of, no, I'm going to walk up, I'm going to shake your hand. And she said, Kamala Harris, let's have a good debate. That's a good move, because it made Trump immediately already subject to her decisions as opposed to be able to drive the direction of the debate. And I thought that was good. Then this moment's just a little extra one I forgot to include in our instant coverage.
Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Oh, I thought it was who would eat your lunch. She said who would eat you for lunch. That's an interesting version. He'd have some... I'm not making another makeup joke. Fill in a makeup joke connected with eating Trump for lunch, and have a ball with that. Then you have this.
I was struck recently in the last couple of weeks just watching Trump in his normal campaign world, on the stump, in interviews, and he is progressively slowing down. He's progressively not able to really even make his own normal kind of cases that he would make about all sorts of issues, and that was on display tonight. I mean, she was really helped by Trump just not really being able to kind of take it to her on virtually anything.
Yeah, diminished, in decline, dilapidated, and as we said, very distressed. He was looking in the spin room. Just one more example of the moderator cope.
Yeah. Okay, you watched the debate. Let's get your overall view.
Yeah, I mean, it was 3-on-1. It was sort of what we expected. Kamala Harris.
Oh my gosh. I'll just keep saying, don't get upset about it, guys, because we're going to hear this a lot. Think about it the way we talk about it so often. If they have to cope by saying it's the moderator's fault, it's 3 versus 1 because they dared to occasionally fact check him after he was done with his answer. They didn't even cut him off. And they dared to ask him questions like, hey, why'd you try to stop democracy from happening that last time? That's proof that they're so biased. You have to be honest with yourself. No one on the Harris side, whether it be Dana Basher in this interview, there's repeated questions about fracking, right? I think we could say Trump's had more dramatic flip-flops more repetitively over abortion than Harris has on fracking, where she had one. She was for banning it a bunch of years in 2019 and then has switched since all the way, 2020 she's had the same stance. And good, ask her about it, as I've said, but no one really finds that to be reprehensible when she's pressed on it. Even the Dana Bash, one question after another. It's a lot of time to spend on that particular topic when there's so many things to ask about, but she did, and no one really cares. They're like, cool, Harris can handle it. She should have to handle those sorts of situations. Trump gets asked a slightly tough question, and all of MAGA melts down. We're America, baby. We're not in this weird, constantly kiss the ring of the authoritarian leader, and that's what MAGA media seems to want in this country, and that's not going to happen if I have anything to say about it. If we have anything to say about it. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Support the show by clicking the join button below.